teenage kids and my wife that I just got fired. And so on the way home, I was trying to think of how to do it. I didn't know exactly what to say, but when I got home, I called them all in the living room. I said, y'all, I got something to tell you. We all got in a little huddle, and I said, your dad just got fired. And I just broke down and started crying again. I was still sick. I was really, really sick. And my son, my oldest son, was 18. He said, let's get down on our knees and pray. And he started praying. I wasn't able to pray. And he said, God's got something better for my dad. I remember that. That's all I remember. God's got something better for my dad. So we got up, went to bed. Next morning, they went to school. And I told my wife, I said, I need to get some fresh air. I just need to get out. I don't know what I'm going to do. She said, where are you going? I said, I don't know. I'm going to drive. I just got to feel better than I'm feeling right now. I was feeling sorry for myself, to be honest with you. I just got fired. And I took my check and put it in my pocket, and I started driving. I was going out I-10, and I started thinking about Bay St. Louis, and I knew Charlie Henderson had been a Ford dealer about 6 years. He'd become a good friend of mine. So I thought on the way, I said, well, I think I'll go to Bay St. Louis, and I'll tell Charlie what they did to me, and he's going to say, you know, you're all right. They didn't treat you right. I wanted some sympathy, to be honest with you. I wanted somebody to tell me I was okay. And I got to Bay St. Louis, and it said, Bay St. Louis this way, Picayune this way. And I'm like, Picayune? I've never been to Picayune. Wonder what's up at Picayune. And so I started thinking, I said, well, I think I'll drive up. It was a beautiful day, like it is today outside. And I started driving toward Picayune, looking at the cows out, and I started feeling better all of a sudden, and I was still praying, God, what do you want me to do? And he reminded me there was a dealer in Picayune named Mr. Stewart. I never had met Mr. Stewart, but I heard about him several times, that he was getting on up in age. And I thought, well, he might sell that Ford place to me. And as I drove along, I said, now, how do you buy a Ford place? Now, I never read a book on how to do that. What are we supposed to do? So I'm driving along, and I get to Picayune, and I'm real nervous about it because, you know, they wasn't changing hand that much. Dealerships wasn't. Usually they stayed in the family. I told Mr. Pringle's son one time, he asked me, he said, what do you want to do with your life? I said, I want to be a Ford dealer. He said, can't be a Ford dealer. You got to be born into these things, man. You can't come off the street and buy one of these. I said, oh, really? Okay. So I'm heading for Picayune. I'm going to ask a man to sell me his Ford place. And I get to Picayune. I couldn't find the Ford place, and asked somebody at Frost Top. They said, what's right around the corner there on Canal, right there? Told me. I got around there and pulled up in front. And sure enough, there wasn't any cars out front. I thought cars was all out in front of the dealers. It was sitting right up on the street like that. Cars were parked across the street and over in the vacant lot over there. But anyway, I went in. I asked the man on the showroom floor. I said, is Mr. Stewart here, the dealer here? He said, oh, he's right back here in his office. I said, you think he will see me? He said, oh, sure, come on back here. So I knock on that door right there. He's in his office there. And I went back there, and I'll be honest with you, I was trembling. I was scared. I was still sick, and plus I'm fixing to do something I'd never done before. And I knocked on the door and opened the door, and he said, come in. I looked in, and he was sitting over there behind the desk, had his feet propped up on the desk, and I walked in. I said, Mr. Stewart, my name's Dub Herring, and I'm from Biloxi, Mississippi, and I came over here to buy this Ford place from you. And I just held my breath. And he started laughing. I thought he was laughing at me. He said, we can't talk here. These walls have got ears, so let's go somewhere where we can talk. Let's go have a cup of coffee. And I thought, oh, he's going to listen to me. He's going to talk to me. And so we got out and went, took him in my car, and he showed me where to go, a place called Bonanza down there. We went down there. We were having a cup of coffee, and I started telling him what had happened to me. And he said, I've heard a lot about you. And I said, you know, I'm sick, and I don't know how it's going to turn out, but the doctor promised me I could get better. I was going to get well one day. And he said, well, I've been thinking about selling this place. He said, I talked to some people out in Dallas and in New Orleans and around, and he said, the doctor told me that I need to sell and get out and go home because he said, I've had 2 wrecks in the last year. He said, I ran into Grandpa Thigpen for one thing. He said, don't run into Grandpa Thigpen in Picayune. You're in trouble if you do that. He said, I can't see real good. And I had another wreck like I got killed. And he said, they won't let me drive anymore. And he said, I've talked to quite a few people about buying this Ford place. And he said, you know, I want somebody that will come here and be a family man and this be their home. And and somebody in the community that would represent it well. He said, this is my home. I'm born and raised here. I don't want just anybody to have it. He said, I don't like any of those people that I've been talking to. He said, but I kind of like you. I said, I like you too. I'm liking him better all the time. So we started talking about money, and I didn't know what to do. I still had my check in my pocket. We were sitting there in this little restaurant called Bonanza. It's not there anymore. A little church in there now, by the way, which is a good sign. But we were sitting there, and so I didn't know what to, I talked to him a little bit. I knew about the size of his dealership, kind of what it was. Finally, I just thought, well, I'll just give him what I got. I'll give him all I got. I had my check. That was it, my whole life savings. And I just got a napkin and wrote it down on a piece of paper, on that napkin there, how much was on my check. And he wrote down a number on his napkin. And we said, well, we'll just see how close we can get. Maybe we'll be close enough that we can negotiate and we can put the deal together. We slid our napkins over on the table, and both of us turned them up. Well, we had the exact same thing on there. I said, God is in this. God is in this. So we shook hands, and I headed home, and on the way home, I'm so excited, and I'm thinking, well, I got to get approved by Ford Motor Company, and they know I've been sick, and they may not approve me. And I just gave him all my money, and I don't have any to operate on. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I knew Ford was going to tell me, you got to have X number of dollars to operate on in the bank before we'll let you have a dealership. And on the way home, I was thinking about all that, and I got home, and one of my best friends, a man in Pascagoula, that kind of, well, he'd gotten me into the Gideons, and we'd done a lot of work here. He was about 20 years older than me, and he was retiring and been a good businessman and never had a son. He just kind of adopted me as his son. And so he called me that night, Jake Runnels, and he said, I heard you. He didn't say, I heard you got fired. He said, I heard you left Pringle Ford. I said, yeah, I sure did. And he said, you know what? I was sitting around here thinking, you're probably going to buy your Ford place, huh? I said, well, Jake, I'm thinking about it. I'm going to try to. And he said, I just wanted to let you know, I got $100,000 laying here around the house. It's just collecting dust. And if you can use it, you're welcome to it. Praise God. Oh, I told my wife, I said, you know, God is all over this. We going to Picayune. And it's just, this is where we're supposed to be. I went to Ford Motor Company, and they said, I said, well, how much money? They figured all their figures, and they came and they said, you need $85,000 to operate on. I went back home and said, Jake, I don't need 100, but I need 85. He said, all right. I said, I want you to be my partner. Come in and be my partner. You're a good businessman. I can learn a lot from you, and I want you to help me. And he stayed with me 5 years. And then he went on and built a hospital for a daughter that he had out in San Antonio. And her husband is a brain surgeon out there. And then he went on to be with the Lord. The day he left this earth, he was handing out Gideon Bibles. I want to be like Jake when I leave here. I want to be handing out Gideon Bibles to somebody that needs it. But I've been here 32 years now. God brought me to Picayune. I'm going to stay here. This is my home, y'all. God bless you. Thank you.